Hello, everyone. Hi, thank you for responding. God forbid anyone else say hello. Hello, whoever that was. Oh, hey, how are you, Barbara? See, isn't this nice? Matt's still scowling over there. I'm just kidding. Great, a couple of things at the top, and then I'll get to your questions. Obviously, many of you know the Secretary was in Brussels earlier today, then in Pristina, now in Belgrade. This morning in Brussels, he participated in a series of meetings, including the NATO ministerial session with Montenegro, the NATO-Ukraine Commission meeting, as well as the bilateral meetings with German Foreign Minister Steinmeier, as well as Romanian Foreign Minister Tămănescu. He then traveled to Pristina, Kosovo, where he met with Kosovo Prime Minister Mustafa, and then with alumni of the U.S. government-funded programs. And now he's currently in Belgrade, where he met with the Prime Minister Vučić earlier today. And tomorrow he'll remain in Belgrade, where he'll participate in the OSCE ministerial. And then on future travel, I can confirm that the Secretary will travel to Paris, France on December 7th to attend the 21st UN Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of Parties, so-called COP21. While in Paris, the Secretary will participate in numerous events surrounding COP21, where he will underscore the importance of ambitious global action to address climate change and its devastating impacts around the world. I think that's all I have. I'll open it up to your questions now.
Okay, let's start with Iran, if we can.
Sure.
So the IAEA report has been submitted to the Board of Governors, and I'm hoping that, despite the fact that it's still 2 weeks away before the Director General makes this officially public, despite that fact, it is out, and that you'll be able to respond to some of the things that are in it.
Sure. Well, go ahead.
Well, hold on. The summary of this says that the IAEA assesses that a range of activities relevant to the development of a nuclear explosive device were conducted in Iran prior to the end of 2003 as a coordinated effort, and some activities took place after 2003. The agency also assesses that these activities did not advance beyond feasibility and scientific studies and the acquisition of certain relevant technical competences and capabilities. The agency has no credible indications of activities in Iran relevant to the development of a nuclear explosive device after 2009. Does the administration accept that? Does the administration believe that this report meets the requirements for Iran to address the outstanding concerns about its PMD, possible PMD?
Right. Dimensions. Right, okay. All right, a lot of questions there, but let me, so as you noted, today the IAEA did submit its report on the possible military dimensions of Iran's nuclear program, as we all call it here, PMD, to the IAEA Board of Governors. We have received that report as well, and are providing it, in the process of providing it to Congress today. And while we recognize that the board has yet to make the report public, it is important for people to understand some of the outcomes of the report and why it's significant and how it generally fits into the overall process. Some key parts of the report, and I hope that hopefully they address your questions. One is the IAEA has confirmed that Iran met its commitments to provide responses to IAEA requests under the roadmap for clarification of past and present issues, which is that agreement that between Iran and the IAEA for Iran to respond to IAEA questions. So this roadmap was critically important for Iran to show that it was willing to fulfill the necessary steps in a process to address the PMD issue with the IAEA, and the IAEA has confirmed that Iran has done so. Second, the IAEA report is consistent with what the United States has long assessed with high confidence, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday. We made this public first in our 2007 National Intelligence Estimate, and that is that Iran had a nuclear weapons program that was halted in 2003. And it's precisely because of our previous assessments, as well as the international community's serious concerns about these possible military dimensions, of Iran's nuclear program, past nuclear program, that we embarked on this process, brought to bear extensive national and international sanctions against on Iran, and brought them to the table to negotiate the JCPOA. And frankly, once the JCPOA is implemented, that we'll have assurance that these kinds of past activities cannot occur again. We'll have that kind of transparency, that level of access. This is something we talked about with the IAEA. We'll have that ability to go in and see what's going on. So if we do see a recurrence of this past activity, we'll be able to immediately address it.
So it does
It does.
close the book. This chapter is
There's,
at least.
and again, it gets into process.
Well,
So that's okay. I'm happy to talk about that.
From the administration's point of
Right.
view, the PMD issue is now resolved. Is that correct?
So it's not just us to say this, and that's why I want to talk a little bit about the process. We, the P5+1, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, will now issue a report or a statement rather with a view towards closing this issue. And until that takes place, that's going to be when the resolution, rather, I said statement, that was wrong. The resolution introduced by the P5+1, and that's when the Board of Governors meets again on December 15th. And that, again, we're submitting that resolution with a view towards closing the PMD issue. And then after that, we can focus on implementing the JCPOA.
You believe that this report gives you what you need to submit that resolution that would close the book on PMD?
Correct.
Correct? Okay. Iranian officials are saying that this report is proof that their program has been exclusively peaceful. And it is a vindication of their position, which was that the rest of the world was wasting its time, basically, in punishing it for a program that it says it didn't have.
I would just say to that, depends on your definition of exclusive, and also, we've been very clear about our belief around prior activities. We believe that this report supports this.
Supports that they
Supports our
did,
previous assessment.
that they did, in fact, have a nuclear weapons program. Is that correct?
That, it doesn't, again, it is,
Well, that's what you said.
No, I said,
consistent with the U.S.
that's okay.
has long assessed
right, exactly.
that Iran
Yeah.
had a nuclear weapons program that was halted in 2003.
Yeah, sure.
And does that, so this, you would disagree with the Iranian officials who say that this is proof that the rest of the world was wrong?
I'm going to let the report stand for itself, and not get into a tit for tat with Iranian officials.
Okay. You are satisfied that the IAEA got everything it needed in order
Well, that's
for
the
it to come
IAEA's
to
assessment tonight,
conclusion?
but we believe that's the case.
Okay.
How is that different than the report that was issued back in 2007 by the National Intelligence Services, which the NIA, which actually said that Iran ceased all activities in 2007?
Well, again, viewing this across the spectrum or the timeline, that report in our National Intelligence Assessment, estimate, thank you very much, National Intelligence Estimate, along with other concerns documented by other international partners, was what led to the IAEA to investigate this. And then also, the IAEA, I think it was in 2011, they, in fact, forgive me, 2011, November, the IAEA laid out its own concerns regarding Iran's nuclear program. And so this has all led us to the point where they had to investigate. Iran had to answer questions or provide access to the materials to answer the questions, outstanding questions the IAEA had about its possible military dimensions of its nuclear program.
Can you change topic?
Russian Ministry of Defense showed satellite images accusing Turkey that
thousands of oil trucks have been heading towards Turkey, that Turkey buys, process, and transfer this ISIS oil. What's the comment on that?
Sure. Aware of those reports. I haven't actually seen the photos. Look, we reject outright the premise that the Turkish government is in league with ISIL to smuggle oil across its borders. And we frankly see no evidence, none, to support such an accusation. Frankly, we believe Turkey is taking the necessary steps, and Secretary of State Kerry spoke about this earlier today in Brussels, to improve the security of its borders with Syria. There's more that need to be done, certainly. But let me finish. But in cooperation with international partners, these efforts will continue in the coming months and weeks. Talking more broadly about oil smuggling, it is a challenge, what ISIL is doing. It certainly remains, is necessary, I think, to shut this down. It's a decades-old practice, frankly, that predates ISIL, of illicit trade in this region. And frankly, it's a challenge that's stymied ISIL's own ability to generate revenue. What we have seen, in fact, is that ISIL relinquishes ownership and sells its oil at the wellhead in Syria and Iraq, and that oil is sold to smugglers, middlemen, truckers. We talked a couple weeks ago about one of our airstrikes against one of these convoys of trucks. And ISIL gains revenue by extorting tolls, oil transportation within its own territory. And frankly, what we talked about before as well is the fact that, we believe that Assad himself was also one of the purchasers of ISIL's oil. Please finish, man, I'll get to you.
So do you mean that this tracking satellite and reconnaissance images are not inaccurate?
Or what? I'm sorry.
Inaccurate?
Again, I haven't seen them. I just don't know what to make of them. I don't want to. I've heard secondhand that they don't show much. But again, we don't believe there's any truth to the fact that their claim that the Turkish government is somehow complicit in illegal oil trade with ISIL. It's just not true.
Can you confirm that, in general, ISIL oil can be found in Turkey market?
I can't confirm that, but it wouldn't surprise me, as I talked about, is, there's this decades-old smuggling, frankly, older than decades, smuggling routes along these borders, working with Turkey, as our other international partners, to secure those borders. But that's a hard challenge in that region. It's very mountainous, it's very difficult to get the kind of presence you need. But that's something we're working with Turkey and with others to address. Yeah, please, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Was the U.S. aware of ISIL's oil being smuggled into Turkey?
We've talked all this a long time. I mean, we've been very much aware of ISIL's intent and, in fact, ability to cash in on the oil that it's been pumping out. As I just said, what we've seen. Sorry, let me finish. What we've seen is that ISIL very often sells its oil, as I said, at the wellhead. So as it comes out of the ground, there's smugglers, there's middlemen, there's truckers who then take that through these established routes. Some of them, no doubt, probably lead to parts of Turkey. I can't categorically rule that out, but it's not what was implied, which is that the Turkish government is somehow complicit in this arrangement. That's just untrue.
But one minute, the Russian defense ministry also, it has published many aerial images of what it says are oil trucks going into Turkey, and it has published exact locations and routes of how ISIL's oil flows into Turkey and where it goes from there. Is it information that the U.S. is interested in?
Is it information the U.S. is interested in? Look, we have our own ways of getting that information, of looking at that area, and it is our assessment that that is not true. I don't want to...
Are you saying it's not true that oil is being smuggled into Turkey?
No, that, again, let's be very clear the allegations that were made today, which is that the Turkish government is complicit in oil smuggling from ISIL into Turkey. That's the allegations that were made out of Russia today, and that's what I'm rejecting. Whether there's some kind of illegal oil smuggling taking place around the border region, as I just said, that's been something that's been going on for decades. It's something we're taking steps to address, and frankly, we're hitting ISIL's oil production facilities or oil resources harder than ever in the past month or so. Dave.
I mean, you talk about a difficult border, but oil tankers travel by road.
Right.
It's not all that complicated to track oil tankers.
Right. Well, I don't want to. First of all, we did hit a convoy of these trucks a little while ago. The area, again, I don't want to get into a tit for tat talking about the satellite photos. Sure. And we actually dropped leaflets in our efforts to avoid civilian casualties. We dropped leaflets to these truckers, letting them know that their trucks are going to be a target. But, you know, again, I don't want to get into a tit for tat over the credibility of some of these photos. But our understanding is that this is very difficult terrain for convoys of trucks to pass easily.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on
Yes, sir.
on the Western Syrian Kurdish
Okay.
connection.
Yeah.
There was a call by Russia today that there ought to be more cooperation between the Syrian regime and Kurdish forces in Syria, and in fact suggesting that they will be working with them. Those are the same forces that you, in fact, supported at one time or another. So, do you find that this is good, bad, or is it does it happen at the expense of other groups and so on? And how do you interpret it?
You're saying that the
The
Assad
Russians
regime or the
are
Russians have said?
The Russians are urging more cooperation between Kurdish military and the
to that
Syrian
state, I
regime.
would simply...
And that's
Sure.
exactly what you did say months back.
Sure. To that I would say, you know, first of all, we just categorically reject the premise that the Assad regime is legitimately going after ISIL or exclusively going after ISIL. You know, they clearly have the moderate Syrian opposition in their targets, and those groups that are fighting in what has become a civil war between Assad's regime and this Syrian opposition. So, you know, for them to say they need to join forces is a bit disingenuous. The Kurds that you're talking about have actually been among the groups that we've been supporting through close airstrikes and other forms of support. So we're actually been taking the fight to ISIS.
Just a quick follow-up. Yesterday, the president said that you know, we will bring in parts of the opposition with whom, frankly, we don't share much and so on, because they do represent Syrians. Now, certainly the regime represents Syrians as well. So why would you work with groups that you don't share, that you have no commonality with, but you will not work with the same regime that basically represents Christians, minorities, other groups, you know, a great many Sunnis and so on. He does represent them, or they say at least for now that he represents them.
I'm sorry, just to get to the crux of your question.
The crux of my question is the president yesterday in his press conference said that we will bring in, you know, for the transition, we will bring in elements of the opposition that frankly with whom we don't share a great deal with. On the other hand, okay, you say you will now work with Assad. You can't see him as being part of Syria in the future, when in fact he does represent, you know, a portion of the Syrian population.
Right. So, fair point. And I talked a little bit about this yesterday. So there's a Syrian-led, forgive me, a Saudi-led effort coming out of the Vienna meetings to identify legitimate, broad, representative group of the Syrian opposition, Syrian political opposition, armed groups and civil society. So that process is going to take place in the coming weeks. I don't have an exact date. But that's all part of this. Again, if there's two elements or two tracks here, one is obviously anti-ISIL and defeating ISIL. The other track that began months ago, but is really gaining traction in Vienna, is this political process. Two elements to that. One is identifying those members of the Syrian opposition representative body who can then represent the Syrian people in this political transition. And part of that is, we've acknowledged this is going to have to, it's certainly going to have to include members of the Syrian government. You know our position on Assad. We've agreed to disagree on Assad's future in order to move this process forward. Yes, sir.
The oil thing, because
Okay, I'll finish and then I'll go oil.
Do you know when the foreign ministers will meet?
I don't have any other clarity on that today. I'll try to get you a better answer, tomorrow. It's the Saudis who are setting this date. Oh, I'm sorry.
Foreign ministers meeting, who met in Vienna, Samantha Power has said yesterday that they will meet this month, and
They will probably meet this month. I just don't have a date yet certain yet.
do you know where?
Not yet.
Thanks. Sorry.
Leslie and then.
can we just come back to the oil thing? Because the Russians have been very specific about this. What you're rejecting is that the Turkish, Erdogan and so on are involved in this. That's what you're rejecting, right?
I am, and that's been,
That's specifically.
well, 2 points of clarity, or clarification rather. That has been a central argument that they've been making, for the past week or so, that the Turkish government is complicit in this smuggling. I can't deny that or I can't say categorically that there's not smuggling taking place on the Turkish-Syrian border. As I said, that's long established and predates ISIL. Let me finish. But what we've seen through our own intelligence and sources is that a lot of that transaction takes place, as I said, at the wellhead or at the source, and it's then sold to smugglers, truck drivers, whatever, who then carry out whatever that network of smuggling is.
The Russians.
Yeah,
The problem with this is that you say you categorically reject the allegations that the Russians have made, but can you speak for all elements of the Turkish government? Are you able to say that there isn't anyone in the Turkish government who is not involved in the kind of thing that the Russians are accusing them of being involved in?
We're confident that the Turks are strong partners in addressing this threat on their border, and they're working in conjunction with you. I can't categorically, I can't to a man say that some corrupt official or but what the allegations are, no, but not. What the allegations have been is that the Turkish government has, that the Erdogan, president, have been complicit in this, and that's not true.
But you can't, can you speak for them, really? I mean, how are you so sure?
We work very closely with the Turks. We've been in dialogue with them, discussions with them. They're a NATO ally and a trusted partner.
Mark, the thing is that
The oil smuggling that's going on, do you reject that too? The scale?
The scale of it, I don't have any.
These aerial images show huge convoys with what Russia says are oil trucks crossing the Turkish-Syrian border unhindered. And one of the images shows, and there are many, shows 240 trucks on the Turkish side of the border and over 40 similar trucks on the Syrian side of the border.
Again, I'm
Are
not
you saying that it doesn't raise any red flags here?
Well, look, first of all, I'm not going to speak to the credibility of your satellite imagery from this podium, certainly. Secondly, no, we've never said that oil smuggling from ISIL is not a problem. What I'm trying to say is that there's no Turkish government complicity in some operations to buy illegal oil from ISIL. It's just we just don't believe that to be true in any way, shape, or form. There is smuggling that takes place across that border. That's one of the reasons why we're working with Turkey to seal that border. But as to, the scale of it, I don't have any estimates to give to you.
Well, one of the things is that they say is that there's no inspection of these vehicles. I mean, one would think, as my colleague David said, was that, these are large trucks and then you stop them. And the fact is that what the Russians are saying, nobody, I guess the complicity would be the fact that they don't stop and inspect these things. So that's what is the U.S. been doing specifically on trying to stop the smuggling and from that oil getting into the international market?
Well, again, it's something we're working with Turkey. I'm not going to outline the steps. Secretary Kerry spoke to it earlier today, but we are actively working on ways that we can seal that border, that we can end these routes as much as they exist, where smuggling may be taking place.
It's going to refineries. You know which refinery it's going to?
I don't, from this, podium, have that information.
That Secretary Kerry was talking this morning?
That's one of the areas. I think what the Russians are purporting is a different area of the border. Yes, sir.
Because of the Russia problem with Turkey just being focused on that. It's also there are proofs of ISIL smuggling with other areas, including Iraqi border inside Iraq and also Jordan and other places. So, don't you think this is the ISIS is exploiting the financial situation of these regions, for example, the Kurdish region of Iraq, Iraqi government, and also Turkey, because if they are successful, sorry,
just, I mean to cut you off, but, there's obviously, yes, it is partly due to the lack of stability in the region that leads to this kind of smuggling operation to take place. We've always identified one of the main efforts in our anti-ISIL coalition to be ending ISIL's illicit trade in the region, whether it's through oil or through other devices or other products or resources. That's key. You've got to cut off how they get their money, how they get their resources. So that's absolutely, I mean, since day one of this coalition, we said that is a priority, and we followed up on that priority. Again, the point I'm trying to make here is those aren't ISIL trucks necessarily pouring over crossing the border, any border. These are smugglers. They're other truckers who are buying this from ISIL and then taking it elsewhere. The quality of the oil is not very good, frankly. That's another component to this. I mean, there's people in this department, frankly, who are far more knowledgeable about these routes, the quality of the oil, all this stuff than I am, certainly. But it is our assessment that that it is not ISIL per se who are taking this oil across borders or trying to smuggle it into others. They're quite content to sell it within their territories, frankly, that they occupy.
But one of the arguments that is not possibly for this not being true is that the oil quality isn't good enough for the Turks. Yeah.
I mean, the oil quality is poor. Yeah.
So they wouldn't accept poor quality oil.
Well, it wouldn't be. It's not very desirable. But I'm not saying that that's an excuse or that's the reason for not participating in this. I mean, look, Turkey continues to be a strong partner in the anti-ISIL coalition. Do we all need to do more? Does Turkey need to do more to stop this kind of activity? Certainly. To seal up their borders, secure their borders, certainly, and that's what we're working with them on.
Are you saying that if ISIS oil is loaded on trucks that belong to some local smugglers, that's no longer ISIL oil?
Not at all, but I'm saying it's not ISIL truckers who are taking this across the borders, and that's what the insinuation, at least, that was made today in Russia.
That's still part of their business, isn't it? That's still part of their revenue.
I think I made that really clear. I said that they sell it from the wellhead to these networks of smugglers and oil smugglers and drivers and others who then take this across the border or take it to other parts of Syria. And by the way, they also sell it to Assad and Assad's regime. And Russia's the number one supporter of Assad. So
on November 17th,
Turkey is a strong partner, U.S. partner. So do you believe that Turkey is unable to close the border? Is it like a big challenge for?
It is a challenge. Again, my understanding, I'm not an expert on the territory, but my understanding is that it's a difficult border to control, like many are. In the back.
And Russia is supporting that. Are you in touch with the Russian officials?
I think they're well. I mean, look, Russia is well aware of our concerns about A, their ongoing support for Assad, B, Assad's complicity in this oil smuggling, and then C, the fact that we need to resolve the issue of the civil war that is taking place in order to turn our attention, A, to stop the atrocities that the Assad regime is committing on a daily basis, and then B, to confront the broader enemy, which is ISIL. Yes, sir.
Mark, if that's really such an easy thing for ISIS to send oil, whether through smugglers, it will be easy also to send their bombing men and also any other thing. If that easy for them. So don't you think there's a form of cooperation between these local authorities with ISIS? Because I know that the Iraqi border, even just one single man cannot penetrate the border with ISIS without any being like confronted with the Iraqi forces or the Kurdish forces. Don't you think there's a cooperation with these guys, or like you said, middleman? Have you talked to the Iraqi government, also Turkish government, that to deal with these middlemen?
Well, of course, we've been in ongoing discussions with both the Turks and the Iraqis about our concerns that they also share about possible smuggling of ISIL oil, ISIL refined pumped oil into these other countries and across borders. Again, it comes down to strong border security, and that's something we're working on.
You're not satisfied with their procedures to stop that, right?
Well, as again, Secretary spoke to this earlier today, where we're working with Turkey to take steps to address it.
Can we change topics?
Yeah.
Change topics, please?
One more for you, and then Barbara, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Apologize.
On November 17th, Secretary Kerry said Turkey and the U.S. started an operation to close the border with Syria. What stopped the U.S. and Turkey from doing it before then?
What stopped us from doing it before then? Look, this has been, I wouldn't necessarily frame it like that. We've been in ongoing discussions with Turkey for well over a year, and talking about how we can take the fight to these ISIL forces or ISIL occupied areas in northern Syria. We've talked a lot about how we've been doing that, which includes Turkey giving us the rights to fly to Incirlik Air Base. But we've always recognized that 98 kilometers of border as something that we need to get firmer control of. The Secretary was speaking about our discussions and indeed our plan to close that border. But I wouldn't say that that's when the operation began. We've been making these efforts. We're going to continue to make those efforts to seal the border. So I wouldn't.
But you were saying started, and this was the
Correct.
beginning of
well,
the operation.
again, it's not. Again, what he was saying was that we've been having discussions with Turkey. We're taking. We're beginning new efforts to secure those borders because we recognize that those borders are not yet secure. Barbara.
Yeah, the British Parliament is voting today on whether to join the airstrikes over Syria. How important would that be for the coalition to have a few more planes in the sky, a few more like RAF planes carrying out strikes?
Thanks, Barbara.
Is it significant?
Well, again, the Secretary also spoke a little bit to this in Brussels, but I mean, as the debate is still ongoing, and out of respect for that, I don't want to get ahead of the vote. I would just say that we recognize that every country needs to make its own decisions about how they can contribute to the counter-ISIL campaign. That said, we certainly hope that the UK will join us in striking ISIL's headquarters, training, and logistics facilities in Syria, just as they've done already in Iraq since the very beginning of this fight. I think, of course, in answer to your specific question, the UK brings strong capabilities in that area to really focus our efforts on ISIL and in support of those groups that are taking the fight to ISIL in northern Syria. So we would certainly welcome that.
Just like, have you seen this new video that's come out with the beheading of the apparent beheading?
Yes. So again, we're aware of the video. Obviously, can't confirm its authenticity yet. If it is indeed what it appears to be, we obviously condemn it. I apologize. It's a video of apparently of a Russian who is being held by ISIL. Again, all allegedly. I just don't know if it's authentic or not. But of course, we would condemn that. Please, sorry.
Yeah, very quickly to the Palestinian Israeli issue. Today, the Israelis are gearing up to expand settlement. 850 housing units in Gilo, 900 in Bisgat Zaif, 2,200 in Givat Hamtos, and similar number in Ramat Shlomo. You have any comment on that?
You're talking about the settlement activity?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we continue to be obviously very concerned. you know, we've never defended or supported Israel's settlements activity, and our policy hasn't changed.
Back to Iran, so
Yeah.
the Iran report.
Can I
One-
just follow up on
Okay,
that?
okay, you finish and then I'll go to Matt.
Yeah. So, also it's been 4 months since a group of settlers burned a Palestinian family and in the village of Duma, and you've called on Israel at the time to go ahead and, do swift investigation and bring those perpetrators to justice. Has anything happened in that period of time?
Again, I'm not aware of the latest on that case. I do know that there was the sentencing of 2 teens the other day who killed a Palestinian teen, Mohammed Abu Qadir. So that's the latest that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of the specific. I know the case that you're talking about. I don't know if there's been any conclusion to that.
On that point, the main suspect, Hamid bin David, who was 31 years old, was the day of the sentencing, was that court accepted an insanity plea, which is really unusual.
You're
on
talking
day
about
of the sentence.
you're talking about
So
the Mohammed
yeah,
Abu Qadir.
yeah, I'm referring to what you brought up.
Yeah.
Because it's a different thing. And there is a lot of fear that, in fact, they might be go free. Do you think there is a double standard of, let's say, swift justice, so to speak, by the Israelis against Palestinians and Israelis who commit the same act of terrorism?
Well, look, I think that there was a case brought against this individual. Due process was carried out. We've talked about this before, that we do believe in the democratic strength, the strength of Israel's democratic institutions, including its legal system.
Now, well, just to give you an example how they deal with Palestinians today, the Israelis blew up the home of Ibrahim Attari in the refugee camp of Shafar. He rammed someone a year ago, so they go in, they arrest a lot of people, they blow up the house and so on. We don't really see similar activities against the Israelis.
I'm aware of that. No, I'm aware of that, and we believe that these kinds of punitive home demolitions are frankly counterproductive, and it can only exacerbate an already tense situation.
Can I go back to?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to get your because while we've been in here, the other ISIS, the international, good ISIS as they like to call it, the Institute for Science and International Security, has put out its initial reaction to the IAEA report, and their bottom line. I'll just make it brief. I want to make sure that the administration does not agree with this assessment. They say the IAEA drew conclusions where it was able to. The bottom line is that the IAEA's investigation into the possible military dimensions of Iran's nuclear programs cannot be understood to be concluded, and certainly it cannot be closed. You would disagree with that conclusion, right?
I would. I mean, again, this is something for the IAEA, of course, to speak to. But we believe that the IAEA was able to assess credible information that it had access to, and complete its report.
Isn't that the key, though? What it had access to.
Look, again, we.
You think that they had enough access to do what?
We have confidence. We have confidence that they had the access that they needed.
And okay, so you would disagree that the case is not closed. You think that it is.
Again, I don't want to get ahead of the process.
But you will support a resolution in the Board of Governors.
We believe that this report addresses. Please, Pam. Sorry,
Can you
Michelle.
clarify a statement that the Secretary made earlier today in Brussels? This was in reference to Iraq. He was asked specifically about Prime Minister Abadi's comment about foreign ground combat troops not being needed in Iraq. And in his response, the Secretary mentioned having respect for the work of Prime Minister Abadi's leadership and a close relationship with Iraqi partners, but he didn't specifically address Abadi's statement. So how exactly is the U.S. responding to what Abadi is saying about there not being a need for foreign ground combat forces in Iraq?
Again, I don't have Prime Minister Abadi's statements in front of me, but my understanding is that he said any kind of deployment would have to be with the approval and with the with the coordination of the Iraqi government and Iraqi military, Iraqi armed forces. And I think that Secretary Carter said as much in responding to a question on this last night, or he spoke to it, addressed it, and said that absolutely, we are, excuse me, any additional forces that we would put into Iraq or on the ground in Iraq would be taken in full coordination with the government of Iraq.
So the U.S. does not believe that Iraq is against ground forces in spite of this statement, but just wants coordination, but Iraq is
That's our
asking for
assessment,
coordination.
But you are clear today that there must be a need for U.S. troops.
Again, I just want to be clear on this, and would refer you to the Department of Defense for any other details, but, because I don't want to speak on behalf of them. But any steps, any additional troops that we would send into Iraq would obviously be done with the coordination of the Iraqi government.
On the word that they use, I think it's the force.
Forgive me?
The
I didn't hear what you said.
that's the term they use.
Oh.
Expeditionary force. I mean, that takes us, that harkens back like to the Spanish-American War. I mean, what does that mean? Really?
I can't begin to, again, I'm going to refer you to Department of Defense to elaborate on why that's different than, for example, Special Operations Forces, but I'm sure there's very clear lines drawn between the different aspects of them. Please. I get the Justin's in the back. He's got it right behind you, Justin. I'm
going to ask you a question now. 1 hour in. There's a report that the Haqqani network in Afghanistan is holding an American man, and that they've been doing so for about a year, and that this had not been previously reported on. This has been unknown to the public until a congressman brought it up. I'm wondering if you have anything on that you'd like to share or not.
I don't have a lot to share, but I do know, and certainly we're aware of reports that a U.S. citizen is being held in Afghanistan, in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region. We reiterate our calls for U.S. citizens being held hostage around the world to be released, and continue to use all the tools at our disposal, whether they be diplomatic, intelligence, or even military, to try to secure their release. We're obviously engaged with both the governments of Pakistan and Afghanistan at the highest levels to emphasize commitment to seeing any and all of our citizens return safely to their families, and that would apply to this case as well.
And are you willing to share anything about his identity?
I can't at this point. I'm sorry, Justin.
And also, do you have any information on what we were asking about yesterday? Any further information on the Iranian-American?
I don't. We're continuing to ask the Iranian government for more information. As was pointed out yesterday, they do not recognize dual citizens. So it's and it's a pretty opaque system in any case. But we're trying to working through a Swiss protectorate power to get more information about the case.
Any contact with family or anything
Not
that would
at this point.
indicate that there was actually, but you do believe, to be clear, that there is an American Iranian.
Again, what we've seen in reports, we have not been able to confirm it yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Please.
This is something I've been meaning to ask for a long time as we get into this Iran not recognized. Do you recognize dual Iranian American? In other words, if an Iranian American is arrested here in the United States,
We do
does the State Department
dual citizenship.
notify you notify the Iranian interest section or the
That's
Iranian mission to the UN?
If I'm wrong, Liz will throw something at my head right now, but I think I'm correct on that.
Have you not ever demanded some kind of reciprocity? I mean, I realize that you don't have diplomatic relations.
It's a fair point, but again, I'm not, I'd have to see, but I don't believe that Iran is the only country to not recognize dual citizenship.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Sorry.
We have reports that the Taliban leader, Mullah Mansour, has been wounded in Pakistan in a shootout. Do you have any confirmation of that?
No confirmation. We've seen the same reports. We're obviously looking into them, but we just don't have any. We've been unable to confirm them.
And what about reports on the Iranian General Soleimani that he was either wounded or killed?
Also seen those reports, and just don't have any way to confirm them at this point. Turkey. Am I close to my get off camera? I know.
Mark,
Time has stopped.
Salahuddin Demirtas, the co-leader of the SDP Turkey, he's now in Washington. Do you have anything on his visit to Washington? Are you going to have any official meeting with him?
Sure. Obviously, it's up to Mr. Demirtas to speak to his trip to Washington, but he is, I believe, at the invitation of the Middle East Institute in Pisa. I think there's a conference that he's participating in. But while he's here, I can confirm that he'll meet with State Department officials to discuss Turkish domestic issues as well as regional issues. And this is obviously, part of our normal process to meet with political leaders, a wide array of political leaders, when we have the opportunity.
At any point, would you discuss the idea of having the United States playing a role in the peace talks or peace process in Turkey?
Our position on that, we consider the PKK to be a terrorist organization. We have called for affirmative action or steps that would lead back to the peace talks that were underway. But we haven't quite seen that yet, and part of that is certainly PKK strikes against Turkish forces and Turkish police officers. Those attacks continue, so that makes that hard to.
But that's not only about PKK. Mr. Demirtas is representing.
Right, of course. No, I thought you were talking about. I thought you were talking about the PKK process.
PKK fight can continue in the mountain, but also peace process in the city.
Yeah. No. Okay. Look, I mean, I don't want to. We're going to talk to him, as I said, about the political environment in Turkey right now, but also regional issues as well. I don't want to try to preview what we may or may not discuss.
Mark, I've asked you yesterday about the presidential elections in Lebanon and if you support the Salman Fanji candidacy, and you said that you don't support the election of any one candidate.
That is correct.
And today, David Ignatius wrote in the Washington Post that under a political deal blessed by the United States and supported by Iran and Saudi Arabia, the vacant Lebanese presidency would be filled by Salman Fanji, and Saad Hariri would become prime minister. And he quoted a senior U.S. official confirming the tentative agreement on Fanji's candidacy and said it had Washington's support.
Well, I'm aware of the article to which you refer, and David Ignatius is a great journalist and a very good writer, but I'll just reiterate what I said yesterday, which is that this is a decision for the Lebanese people to make. We're not going to insert ourselves in that electoral process. Where we have been firm and very clear about publicly is saying that the paralysis of Lebanon's political institutions is a great concern, and that Lebanon needs a president and a fully functioning government to confront the many challenges that face it. So what we want to do is, or what we want to see is this political process move forward.
I'm sure you're aware David Ignatius is also an accomplished novelist.
Yeah.
The fact that you referred to him in that sentence as an accomplished, as a journalist and a great writer would suggest that you're not.
I'm not questioning.
You're not taking.
I'm just stating what our position is. I'm being somewhat facetious. I don't mean to.
But it would seem to confirm that what you have.
I'm just saying. No, what I'm saying is I take. Anyway.
I think that what he said or what he posted is not accurate.
Again, I don't want to, what I'm saying is we support the election of a president. Who that president is wholly the decision of the Lebanese people.
But there is
one more question.
Everybody knows in Lebanon now that in 1998, the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Richard Murphy, went to Lebanon and made the Lebanese to pick or to choose between Mikhail Daher, who was a candidate, and the chaos. What's the difference between then and now? You're saying that it depends, or it's a decision for the Lebanese people, and now Saudi Arabia, Iran,
are making this deal that Mr. Ignatius says that the United States support?
Again, I'm not gonna, speak to what, anonymous U.S. government officials may have been telling David Ignatius. All I can say is that we, want to see, a resolution come in Lebanon, the election of a president, and a fully functioning government put in place. That is what our priority is. And frankly, it's not our priority, it's in the interest of the Lebanese people. Nike.
Quick question on China
Yep.
cyber. Do you have any confirmation that U.S. and China has reached a broad agreement to fight against the cyber crime and to set up a hotline to address that issue? If yes, what difference between this agreement and the previous ones?
I don't believe I've got that level of detail on the outcome of today's talks. But let me try to get those. I'll take that question. And try to
Okay,
see if I
and
can
if
get
you Chinese media is reporting that OPM hacking is actually not sponsored by the state. It's a criminal case. Do you?
Who's reporting on that?
The Chinese official report, official media reporting that the OPM was a criminal case, not state-sponsored cyber attack. Do you?
Yeah,
agree
I'm not
with
aware
that
of those reports. As far as I know, that's still under investigation. Thanks. Yep.